250th anniversary of the Army. And those are your headlines, guys. Back over to you.
Also, it was not President Trump's idea with the parade for his birthday.
No.
It was put up last time by General George.
I'm so glad you brought that up today.
Yeah. And the Army was the one that suggested having this parade. They're trying to say because his birthday's on Saturday and the parade's on Saturday, he's doing this for his birthday.
It's going to be patriotic and wonderful. Who doesn't like a military parade? Come on.
It's also Flag Day.
Yeah.
Yep.
Welcome back to Posting Through It. I'm Mike Hayden.
I'm Jared Holt.
That's right. Thank you so much for the tips you've given us over the last few episodes.
Every little bit helps. We really appreciate it. And like the prior episodes, you can find a link to that down in the description.
That's right. I'm a father on Father's Day. It's like Veterans Day for veterans.
You're braver than the troops, Mike, I think.
Thank you.
I mean, I have a dog. I'm a father, right?
Yeah, I think it's about the same.
My dog and your two children. We got a great response to the last Who the Hell Is episode. That one last week with Amanda Moore was all about Nick Fuentes. If you haven't listened to it, go check it out. Those are, written and made to be evergreen, revisited if you really hate yourself. So go check it out. I was pretty happy with how it turned out, and we seem to get something that I don't know that we've really had on the show before, which is an influx of super far right young men listening to the show. Many Groypers tuned in, and I think Nick Fuentes tuned in himself. He posted about it on Telegram that he was listening to the podcast.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he's, in addition to being probably sociopathic, he's also undoubtedly narcissistic. And yeah. So, I mean, as soon as somebody starts talking about him, he's got to know. I mean, even if you're not fully narcissistic, you want to know what people are saying about you in general. But yeah, I mean, it was cool to have him do that. And one thing I want to say is when we have far right listeners, we had a few. I mean, that guy Captive Dreamer, listened to his episode.
Oh yeah.
It seemed like he probably listened to it about 20 times.
And he posted clips of it, but what he did us a little dirty on those clips. He pitched our voices up just slightly,
right?
Which I thought was sad. I don't know, but
that's how the Chipmunks made their music.
Yeah, and they were a hit.
What I was
there
going to say,
could be something there, Mike.
What I was going to say with Captive Dreamer, or any of these people, I always look at it as an opportunity, and it's like not to be lame, but like, there's always a chance that somebody can hear you and imagine a life not, in the far right, not in these anti-immigrant, white nationalist spaces. And I would invite anybody who is just creeping on one of these things and wants to talk to somebody, talk to me. Seriously, I love talking to people like that. And I've had so many people through the years who I have helped leave the movement. Not to be, not to get too sincere here, but I actually really have. And I actually have a lot of people who have not. I think they have the assumption it's like, oh, they're just looking for as a source. But actually, I would say more people than not I've just helped or hung out with and just helped them kind of mentally process that there's a world outside of it. So
yeah, I mean, I've had the same experience, and what I'll say is what those people have consistently told me is that all it takes is a little bit of distance, and then you kind of start to see how fucked up it is, right? It's just like it I think just the way social media works and the way these media operates kind of foment hostility towards outgroups, right? It's very isolating. It really is, as much as I think, social media bubble or whatever has kind of just become a cliche. It really does like kind of function like that to some degree. It's like you enter the dome and all you got to do, we're not going to like dox you or call your mom or whatever, but you know, if you want to see what it's like outside the dome, just for a little bit, I've got some other shows. We can recommend you some music or something. They're just guys. I don't know what to say.
Imagine like the only music you could listen to is like Screwdriver and like whatever flash wave, like shitty techno that is. Like there's so much more, right? Anyway.
It's Mike with like half a dozen Groypers showing them like Kraftwerk CDs.
That's right. I do listen to music on CD, folks. Okay. So, yeah, I think that's basically that. And we had a very busy weekend, Jared. It was a very busy news weekend, and not necessarily in a great way. There was, of course, the plane, the Air India plane, where the guy survived. I guess that's an interesting story, but the rest of it, not so fun.
No, but I did enjoy hearing squeaky tanks. The squeaky tank might make some more appearances in this episode. We'll see how it goes in editing and how much sanity I have left by the end of it. But what we're talking about, the big military parade in Washington, D.C., June 14th, that was Saturday, coinciding with Trump's birthday. They put some grandstands up. You've got Trump sitting there just looking miserable. I don't know what the weather was like or if he was bored or what. I don't know. I can't read his mind, but like he didn't really look like he was enjoying it. Turnout was like abysmal compared to what they clearly expected from photos and videos you saw of like the security barricades they erected, these long snaking, metal gates of these crowds. It's like they were expecting an inauguration size crowd or something. Yeah. Well,
Trump was making the face Trump was making. I would like to call this MetLife Stadium, fourth quarter, Bills 30, Jets 6. That's the face I'm making. That's what Trump looked like. And they had all of his influencers come out and try to fluff this up, but you can't put a spin on it because the big guy is making that face. He knows it sucks. Everybody knows it sucks. And they had like Stephen Miller's out with his wife and kid, and they're like, they did a post where, just like kind of like, here we are, and the far right people were eating that up, and Jack Posobiec was out around with his kids and putting them around the tank and stuff like that. But the big guy, he said it all.
It also just the optics didn't work. I think they were hoping for this like just sort of big authoritarian optic play, right? It's like, wow, this big, powerful military. And you see videos like this through history from like North Korea has military parades. The Soviet Union had these big military parades. But what made the footage of those different is that the tanks were flanked on all sides by these massive crowds of screaming, cheering people. And it just doesn't have the same impact when you have like whatever random fucking Army Reserve battalion from Southeast Missouri marching down the street to like a well under projection audience just kind of going like, yeah,
right.
This is cool.
But also, and I'm not going to neg our troops here and say something, terrible about them necessarily, but Hegseth or whoever did not get these guys in line for this thing, because you see them and it just looked like amateur hour. Everybody was just kind of like, kind of waltzing around in different costumes. It was sort of like a local town thing. And if you see like the equivalent in China and stuff like that, it's like those dudes are going hard in the paint.
Yeah, dude.
Right.
It's like it reminds me of like going to a concert and like the artists have the in-ear monitors and everyone's playing to like a metronome. Everyone's just like locked the fuck in, right? Yeah. You watch these videos out of China, it's just like you can almost like feel the marching, just like boom, 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 because everyone.
It's like a Rammstein concert in 1997 or something. They're just like, they're just so disciplined and like so energetic, and they're just like going after it with so much enthusiasm. And then you see our guys, it's just like a bunch of guys they look like they wandered out of a bar in a World War II costume for whatever reason.
Yeah, it looks like they got like called for this the day before and we're like, okay, I guess it's better than like scrubbing toilets on the base or whatever, And again, I'm not trying to like talk shit on the troops or whatever, but like I don't care. But like it's, you work with the cards you're dealt, I suppose.
Yeah.
These weren't great cards. And, there's the optic of Trump sitting there just looking depressed. Pete Hegseth is next to him, right on the heels of this big New York Magazine profile about how just what an absolute shit show the Pentagon has been, with him kind of calling the shots in there, being a guy who I think he's a veteran, I think, but not like a general, not what's this guy know about anything? Right.
He's been a Fox News host for most of his recent history.
Yeah. And he's had, substance abuse issues that have been coming out, the whole Signal situation leaking out, war plans that they say aren't war plans or whatever. And so you've just got this kind of chump sitting next to him. And then they hired a band to play songs. They're playing Van Halen and stuff. But then at one point they play Fortunate Son, which is a military protest song. And it reminds me when Trump supporters or whatever, blast Rage Against the Machine.
That's right. Yes. Rage for the Machine.
Yeah.
Well, there's a big history of right-wing people in the U.S. getting things wrong. It's Ronald Reagan made Born in the USA the hallmark of his I think is his re-election campaign, if I have that correctly.
I think so.
It was in '84. Yeah, that's when it was that's when that came out, and it's the whole song is just about how broken America is in every possible way, and how people like Ronald Reagan let people like the character in the song down. And he was blasting it as a patriotic anthem.
Yeah, Born in the USA is it says Born in the USA a lot, but Born in the USA in that song is the punchline. Right. It's just completely tone deaf. But I think it's important to kind of talk about they're doing this military parade while at the same time, Israel is attacking Iran, presumably with U.S. support. I think they've said as much now that the U.S. is going to support this. All the, Republican war hawks in Congress are just salivating for this stuff. I mean, it's what they've all, the U.S. is
let me ask you a question about that.
These guys have had wet dreams about attacking Iran forever.
Do you think, so there's an idea that they have known about what they want to do to Iran for a while. This particular plan has been cooking for a bit. Do you think that they looked at the calendar and they're like, oh, this might happen here? I know they're acting surprised or whatever, but also the military thing, and they thought that would be good. Do you think? Because I got to say that the visuals, on your TV of these things landing and people worrying everywhere all over the world about the possibility of World War III or whatever. It looks really bad. I mean, in particular, the combination of just how broken down the parade looked with these fears, about war. I mean, to me, it's just the worst display of optics I've seen in a long time.
Yeah, and it's just check out all this military coming soon to the Middle East, right? That. Yeah. I feel like that's kind of the vibe it sends. And if you look at public opinion polling on Israel's military actions and stuff, it is abysmal. People don't want this. They don't want to be involved in this. Even a lot of people on the right have I think, had enough of this. I think
that MAGA has, in the same way they underestimated how people would respond to throwing out a bunch of bullshit around Jeffrey Epstein, which we've covered a bunch on here. I think they underestimate how serious people actually are in the base about no war. They really think that that's part of the Trump thing. And it makes a lot of the corruption and everything else around Trump's go down a lot smoother, that they think that they're actually supporting peace, right? And they'll be like, oh, Hillary is a warmonger, but Trump is the one for peace. And Biden is going to get us into World War III, but Trump is for peace. And I don't think it's one of those things where the rhetoric is actually has been repeated so much that I actually think they're in real danger here of backlash from the base, which is hard to find.
I mean, just all of this kind of stacks up. I made an observation on our X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it.
Whatever it is.
But it's just, all of this is combining. You have like Elon Musk calling Trump a pedophile, then saying,
I went a little too far. Sorry about that.
He threatened they were going to cancel my contracts is probably what that actually meant.
Right.
He got a call from the board of SpaceX that was like, shut the fuck up, dude.
Yeah, exactly.
but between that, I mean, sending, the military to quell and try to quash out civil dissent over the immigration raids and stuff.
That's right.
It's like all of this is just kind of adding up.
That was the other thing. You're right. I had completely forgotten that before we started this, but yeah, the main things in your mind about military now are like, are we going to come fight a war for Israel on one hand, and on the other hand, are these troops going to, put guns in the faces of like pregnant women or whatever on the streets of American cities? And like, that is not appealing. And I'm sorry, if you put some like World War I costume on these guys and march around, it's not going to make it any more appealing. If anything, it make it more sickening because it's so saccharine and stupid.
Yeah, and there's these are things that the American public, and I think the MAGA base will just like support whatever. But I think all of that sort of in between zone, the people that were like, voted for Trump because they're like, well, it's better than Kamala or whatever. I just can't imagine this is going down smooth, to be like, oh, we're sending Marines into LA. We are maybe / probably going to send our troops and supplies into Israel, and let's flex on it.
Right. Yeah.
It's just, you made an observation on a prior episode. I think it might have been the Kim Kelly one or the one with Edward, but it's just like the vibe is souring. The MAGA movement, they'll always have their like loud propagandists online, right? I mean, that's what these people have to do. That is their role.
Sure.
It is to be Jack Posobiec with his kids being like, look, a squeaky tank. This is epic. Wake up, pray up.
Sure.
That sort of stuff. But like the business world is not happy. Our global allies are certainly not happy with us. And I think the American public is already just kind of getting sick of this shit.
Yeah.
It's just, the Democrats were entirely wrong. I thought they had some like real fuel when they were going out and being like, oh, the MAGA movement is a bunch of perverts and weirdos. But then they dropped it, and instead they were like, "Look, we can be like them too. We're not the crazy left. Yeah, that's just dumb shit." But like, but I think they're losing the mojo. You can look at Trump's face during that military parade. I almost wonder if they know it too.
Yeah. Well, I think that the Democrats, are a big reason why Trump is still over 40%, because they really have not put together a strong message that people can get behind. And if you look at what happened in Minnesota, for example, very familiar vibe, here where you have like far right extremists, like again, trying to bully and intimidate liberals. And I feel like that is the environment where they play the role of, targets for the far right. In the cultural imagination, which is sad and scary. And this was like a horrific incident. Yet another incident of a guy who is a pro-Trump, type, who had kind of had a kill list of some kind. We mentioned a kill list when we were talking to Kim Kelly a couple weeks back that we were on. That's why you take kill lists pretty seriously because of things like this. And
it only takes one guy to be serious about it in this case, for someone to die,
Yeah. And it's like these people who are like true believers in MAGA, see themselves as ordained to bully and intimidate liberals. This is like one of the most fucked up things you can possibly imagine. Obviously, I think that by the time that we, this episode goes out, they probably will have caught the guy. But as of right now, he's still kind of on the loose.
Yeah, the suspect they've named is a guy named Vance Bolter, I think is how it's said. Kind of stock right-wing guy, registered Republican, voted for Trump, but also, and this starts to get outside my field of expertise, but I've seen a lot of reporting about his connection to like Christian nationalist movements and Christian nationalist churches and stuff. But something that stuck out, you found someone had posted this clip of him just going on like an anti-trans tirade.
Dieu ne peut pas enlever. Nothing. Il n'y a rien. There's people, especially in America. Il y a des gens, particulièrement aux États-Unis. They don't know what sex they are. They don't know how their sexual orientation. They're confused. Ils ne savent pas ce qu'ils sont exactement. Ils ont une confusion. The enemy has gotten so far into their mind and their soul. Et l'ennemi est entré dans le fond de leur pensée et de leur âme. But this word.
If you take an honest look at this guy, you listen to some of these clips. I mean, it's pretty clear what this is. And I can't help but think back to the fact that the Trump administration, one of the first things they did in office was pardon all the J6ers and then get to work just ripping the guts out of violence prevention, anti-extremism funding, and that sort of thing, right? And I'm not saying those programs were perfect. It just carries a lot of baggage from like the war on terror era. Yeah, so I'm not saying like, well, if those programs had been in place, we wouldn't have a dead lawmaker in Minnesota. But, you know, I just can't help but think that. And now there's like some 22-year-old dipshit in that office, right? I mean, they're just... So much of what they're doing, they're justifying like national security. We have to do this to keep us safe. We have to do this to keep us safe. And it's like one of the most politically convenient moves you can pull. You hear it all the time in politics from both sides of the aisle. This is just a national security thing. That's why I don't have to answer questions about it. That's why we have to do this grossly unpopular thing. That's why we have to expand the power of police, whatever. At the same time, it's just like they're ripping the guts out of stuff that is at least trying. And is really a drop in the bucket compared to like the big, beautiful spending bill or like however the hell much this military parade costs. I think it was like hundreds of millions of dollars, right?
Yeah. Well, everything, because we work in the far right, like on monitoring and stuff like that. When I worked for SPLC, I did it a lot. And on the non-government side of things, we have really lost like all of that kind of reporting work that used to be done around this stuff too. Because when incidents like this would happen in the past, you would see a lot more detailed explanations as to what was happening, where he's coming from, what his ideology was, et cetera. And also, if they didn't have that information, just like things that were similar, right? Like you would have like just a lot more context. And another thing that used to happen, it was a story that I used to do quite a lot and kind of enjoyed, which was whenever there was violence that was started by the radical right, you would always have this wave of disinformation that would follow or sort of spin, right? Where they would try to take far right violence and make it into something, make it look like it was coming from the other side, this or that. Thing.
It was a false flag. It was
always.
I mean, there was like
Antifa. Antifa did so many mass shootings that they never did, if you recall.
Yeah.
And for this one, there's actually been that thing because there's been this hard push to try to make Bolter, I think his name is Vance Bolter, to make Bolter into some sort of left wing person. And you have this guy who goes by the pseudonym Gunther Eagleman, posting this thing about like essentially saying, he's dumber than rocks.
But serious dude, Gunther Eagleman. Yes. It sounds like what was that show that had like the birds who were lawyers? It's like
I don't know.
Some listener will message me. It was like on Adult Swim. It was like Harvey Birdman or something. I'm gonna get killed for that, but
find out. But but he wrote about it. It's exactly what happens when Marxists don't get their way, right? And there's nothing about this guy to indicate that he's a Marxist at all. Okay. There's very few Marxists in the country, quite frankly. But the fact that he's doing it and there's no pushback, there's no there's no organizations making statements about it or issuing press releases about it or anything like that is a problem, because it allows it to sort of take root some places in the middle. I mean, if there are some people who know people who are sort of non-political who will get that stuff from X and it gets circulated around, and the next thing you know, you're like, oh, this guy was a Marxist and he was killing people on a Marxist target list. That's why you need that kind of information out there. And the most egregious of all is Andy No, who had a very busy weekend. He had a very busy weekend, which we can get a little into later. But Mark Dayton and then later Tim Walz both appointed this guy to the Workforce Development Board in Minnesota. Probably never even saw his face. I don't know. But
it seems like one of the things that comes across your desk that it's just like, hey, we need you to sign. This is the kind of stuff that like the auto pen gets used for, right?
Exactly. But Andy has the violence, in front of him, and his spin is Bolter has close ties to Tim Walz, which is really funny because it's like, I've seen that asshole say that Michael Hayden has close ties to terrorism.
Oh yeah, you kind of forgot. He says Jared Holt had close ties to the Dayton shooter.
Right.
Why? Because he followed me on Twitter. Oh my God! Whoa! No.
But this is the kind of dumb shit that is going on in the far right ecosystem, and it's going unchecked right now.
Yeah. It's just it has always happened, but now it gets to play in a vacuum. It almost makes you wonder, like how these guys even get so famous to begin with.
I want to get famous.
So something else happened this weekend, which was a gigantic protest movement all across the U.S. It was called the No Kings protest. It happened.
By the way, good branding.
Good branding. Yeah,
very good branding.
I gotta say, in my neighborhood, which is just kind of like a little residential part in what will have to remain undisclosed part of Chicago.
Yes.
I saw somebody had written on the sidewalk around the corner from my house promoting the protest in chalk, in sidewalk chalk. It was like, No Kings protest, be here on Saturday. And I've like never seen that before. And there were posters like all over town. The turnout in Chicago was huge, and it seemed to be huge all over the place. I mean, even in like middle of nowhere towns, it's just like you'd get like hundreds of people showing up.
I mean, I saw protests that went off in the rain, people out there in the rain, like trudging out there. And this goes back to the original part of our show where we were talking about how weak and pathetic the Trump administration really looks right now. As this stupid military crap was going on, the protests, the No Kings thing was popping off. And it really was a stark contrast. But, and I think this is key, and I made a big note of this when we were talking, I said what we were going to talk about today. You hardly see any coverage of this anywhere. I know like Rachel Maddow has made like a regular thing on MSNBC of like, that's like her main thing she's covering is just like resistance to the Trump stuff or whatever. That's like just one person I can think of. And you'll see on MSNBC in particular, which really is like focused on a very liberal audience like that. But on CNN, very little coverage, I thought. Completely overshadowed by the Air India flight, by the business in Minnesota, by the military thing, by Israel and Iran. You see almost nothing on New York Times homepage about it at all. Protests all over the country.
Do you have any theories as to why that is? I mean, it's, the organizers estimated, I think it was 5 million people turned out for these protests, which would make it one of the biggest, if not, I think I saw someone say it was the second biggest single day of protest in the United States. Like, that kind of seems like a huge deal. And it's certainly a striking visual against that military parade.
Well, I have a bunch of theories because I don't think it's just one thing. One theory is that the mainstream media, as we call them, as a blob, and it's obviously not that. It's a bunch of different workers, as we know. Because as a person who's worked inside mainstream media and outside mainstream media. I understand that it is complex, entity. But I really believe the execs do not look at liberals or people opposed to Trumpism as news. For whatever reason, they do not see, they don't look at it's sort of like you only see somebody like Gavin Newsom in the context of him criticizing Trump. Everything is about for or against Trump. Everything is about Trump and Trump's world. MAGA is news to them, right? And that's how people who have no discernible abilities at all, people like some of the folks we cover on this show have wound up becoming minor celebrities, right? And it's partly because that is where the action is in their mind. They elevate these people all the time with the understanding, maybe sometimes not, that these people are bad. Like the Trump people are bad, the MAGA people are bad in their head. Like this is racist, this is bad, but that's news for them. And when liberals do anything, it's not news. So imagine if you had a quarter of the MAGA people, right, on the streets as you had in this No Kings protest, well, then you would have the exact kind of coverage you had in the run up to Stop the Steal and January 6th.
Yeah.
Which was blanket coverage.
Yeah. And they still miss, and so many newsrooms still miss the Capitol riot.
Yeah, of course. Think how much coverage that got. And it's like, I don't know if you're familiar with the bit on The Simpsons where they get an elephant or whatever. And like everybody's focused on the elephant and everybody's paying attention to the elephant. And the dog and cat get up and on their hind legs to try to get attention when they can't get attention. And they're like, we love you, like learning how to speak in order to try to get attention. But that's what being anti-Trump is like to the media. Like, what do you need? Like, what are they going to have to do? I mean, it's like people are going to have to go and set fire to themselves. Like we've seen in some kind of like really extreme protests. I mean, it's embarrassing that it's not being covered.
And it kind of goes almost deeper than that. I mean, you saw what happened to Terry Moran at ABC, right? There's like, for listeners, Terry Moran was a foreign correspondent, chief White House correspondent, anchor of Nightland. He's worked for ABC News for like 3 decades. Big deal at ABC News. Recently, he did that interview with Trump where he pushed him on the MS-13 hand tattoo things around the Garcia case. He was good. I mean, he was fine. I mean, there's a limit to how aggressive you can be if you want to keep interviewing the president, I guess. And that's always been sort of the limit there on big national news organizations that really do need to be able to interview the president once in a while. But they can't him because he went on X/Twitter and wrote that Stephen Miller was, he called him a world-class hater, which is pretty good. Pretty good.
It's also pretty mild. I mean, it is my perception of the news and the world. It is essentially established that Stephen Miller is a bigot. There's quite the most read book about him is literally called Hate Monger.
Yeah, I have it in my office here. It's great.
By Gene Guerrero, by the way. Point of it is that people know Stephen Miller in this context before he succeeded in the Trump world. He was considered one of the more extreme and freakish players in in Capitol Hill.
Yeah.
Right. So, to call him hateful is really not beyond the bounds of good taste. And it's pretty common and part of the way on CNN, for instance, when he gets spoken about on those roundtables, people, of course, will call him bigoted and stuff like that. Right. It's just a common opinion.
Yeah. So he tweets this, posts this, whatever. He tweeted it. The press secretary, Caroline Leavitt, and JD Vance both called for ABC News to, got to hold Terry accountable. And it seems like ABC News bent the knee.
Yeah, they suspended him first, and then 2 days later, I think,
Yeah, canned him. So according to ABC News, his contract was up for renewal, I guess. And because of this post, which they say violated their policies, decided not to renew. So they canned him. I think we can say. They'll say we didn't renew a contract, but we can all read between the lines, or I guess you guys can listen between the lines there. Mike, you actually worked at ABC News. Like,
that's right. I did.
Does this feel consistent to you from that company? I mean, I don't want you to just like relentlessly badmouth a former employee or anything, but
well, in all sincerity, I would not relentlessly badmouth a former employer, because I learned a lot when I worked at ABC News, and I also am proud of some of the work that we did. The first thing I would say about ABC, for people who don't know anything about it, if you're familiar with Chartbeat, where they measure, the traffic of, how an article does and stuff like that. I was on ABC News Digital, and the amount of traffic you would see on an article after you would publish it, it was like when you like win in a slot machine, and it just all of a sudden. I remember during the weekend at Charlottesville, I was publishing stories for ABC News, and it would just fly up Chartbeat. Like, it's just like the numbers of people in the article at one time. So that shows you just like how much influence they have. It's Disney.
Yeah.
It's Disney. Yeah. That's important to remember. I mean, it's like you're Mickey Mouse is like the heart of the American culture.
I'm picturing you like slamming away on an IBM ThinkPad, and Mickey Mouse is like, more articles, Mike, more.
Yes. I was going to say something like Mickey Mouse Antifa, whatever. Not going to waste time with that. But what I would say is that when I was there, we had this thing called standards and practices, and that's where it got hairy. Every single major mainstream publication that you're aware of has some sort of standards and practices, like New York Times and Wall Street Journal and all these places. They have these things, and it's a combination of people who police the standards of the publication or the broadcast, and lawyers, right, who are worried about. And when I was there, I would write articles about climate change and things that were like, there would be a frequency of hurricanes. I would find some scientists talking about the degree to which climate change was creating more hurricanes or whatever, and then I would build a story off of that. It would be approved all the way, and then it would be stopped and killed. Largely, for interests that I could not see. I could not see whose interests this was offending. And yeah, it would be like, I'd be really like, what? Like, why aren't we doing this, like, this layup story about climate change? This will also do numbers, right? Like, people want to see this. Like, my interests were not like all like some sort of like leftist agenda. It was also to do stories that I thought people wanted to read, that I thought were useful, right? Like, people want to read. Like, I saw a lot of people talking about this, and then I saw this guy commenting about it, and like people were interested in that. And then I got like 3 scientists to say something about climate change, and somebody at ABC doesn't want it to publish. And like, that was where you would see the more conservative side of things. The other thing I would say about ABC, and this is expanding this monologue, but I think you'd like this story, Jared. I remember I was working at night during the Democratic National Convention of 2016. And if you remember that, this was like, there was a fight song.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah, it's
yeah,
fight,
dude.
yeah,
Forever.
Fight song, right? Yeah,
yeah, dude. That's a fucking banger. Hold on, I'm gonna put that on real quick. Keep talking.
You're gonna like this story, by the way. So I got an idea, like learned how ABC News could kind of be used, and how I could be used as an employee there to move the country in a more reactionary direction that night. Because it was like, hey, get this commie. Get him covering Trump. Let him cover Trump, and we're going to. The real action is at the Democratic National. The real journalists are doing that. Let the dumbass in the army jacket monitor Trump. So I if I recall correctly, Trump was on the east side of Iowa, and he gave some talk, and he referenced Michael Bloomberg in it without saying, in the middle of it, somewhere in the middle of it. And he was like, there was this little guy and I wanted to hit him so bad, right? Like is the way what he said it. And like, so my stupid ass, I'm looking for news. I was going go find news in this story. And I turn around, I'm like, they gave us these free sandwiches from Parm, these like, eggplant Parm hero. And I'm like, hey, Trump just said he wants to beat up Michael Bloomberg. And, my editor was like, okay, that's news. Or, they didn't want to listen to me, but essentially just do a quick hit, do like a 300, 400 words. So I did something. I want to hit this guy so bad. And then it goes on Chartbeat and all the Democratic National Convention stories are there. And then this one just flies over all of them within 3 seconds. And at the time I was like, hell yeah, look what I did. I did the story. But what happens is Trump goes on his next stop, which is on the west side of the state, if I recall correctly. We can fact check this, but I believe this is what happens. He goes in and the next time he gets to his next stop, he says it again, right? It was an ad lib, but now he says it again because he knows that it's doing numbers. He knows that it's like people are interested. They love it, right? So I thought I was exposing a bad man who is saying naughty things as a politician. In reality, I was giving Trump everything he wants. And I think that is the long thing of how ABC News is used to inflate the right-wing world. It shuts down certain stories out of financial interests, and it has the power to reach a huge audience. And when you get like sensational reactionary stuff, even though you see the journalists Trump goes mad about them, and he talks about how they criticize him, and he says he hates ABC and it's all fake news. In reality, they have, I think, a symbiotic relationship. And Terry Moran stepped outside that relationship. Yeah,
he stepped outside the box. So Terry's on Substack now. I guess he's going to start writing soon. One of the pieces that he put up first, I just want to read a quick bit from it. In institution after institution, from law firms to the universities to the Senate itself, and beyond the institutions, into our everyday lives, force is being applied to your willingness to speak up and tell the truth about what you are seeing and experiencing. Sometimes it is physical force. Sometimes it is a threat of physical force, or the online mob descending into your digital life. Sometimes it is the threat to people's livelihoods and the survival of business, great and small. In the face of that danger, all of us, sooner or later, will have to make a choice. He skips ahead, and basically, he channels like a lot of the late Molly Ivins, who was a Texas newspaper columnist who I read a lot of when I was in journalism school, just because I found, it was this Southern as hell woman, writing in, I'll call it y'all parlance, in a syndicated column. Like people loved it, people all over the country loved it. But one of her like big, great columns was called The Funds in the Fight. And whenever I feel down about work, I counted it one time. I think I've published like 1,500 articles. I was going breakneck at Right Wing Watch. I published so much stuff for them. But a couple standout lines from the Molly Ivins column, which I'll put in the episode description in case people want to read it, that I think are kind of, like I said, I read these when I'm feeling down. This country is in a bleak spot. A lot of people are probably feeling down. So maybe you can take away some of it. You got to have fun while you're fighting for freedom, because you don't always win. Those who think of freedom in this country as one long, broad path leading ever onward and upward are dead damned wrong. Many a time, freedom has been rolled back, and always for the same sorry reason: fear. So one thing I have learned from Johnny Falk, Texas, and life is that since you don't always win, you got to learn to just enjoy fighting the good fight. And then this is probably the most quoted passage. So keep fighting for freedom and justice, beloveds, but don't you forget to have fun doing it. Lord, let your laughter ring forth. Be outrageous, ridicule the fritty cats, and rejoice in all the oddities that freedom can produce. And when you get through kicking ass and celebrating the sheer joy of a good fight, Be sure to tell those who come after how much fun it was. So, I don't know. Maybe that was just an excuse for me to share my favorite Molly Ivins column. But, Terry Moran seems to be, at least in that first thing he wrote on Substack, is kind of, I was reading it and just immediately was like, Molly Ivins. He's bringing some Molly Ivins energy, and him being who he is, I support it. I hope it works out for him.
Well, I mean, I think, the thing that comes to mind here is that money, right? It's a capitalism is the biggest enemy of telling the truth here. And we just see so many times how people will drop off, people who are really talented people who can't like kind of sell out, right, in their heart, drop off because they just have nowhere to go. And that's the really, really difficult thing. I mean, I assume Terry's got like some, he's got some means, having the position he had for a while at ABC. I would imagine it paid pretty well. But not everybody does. And that's the really difficult thing. And it's, once you are operating outside of the world of standards and practices, it becomes harder to do journalism. I think people don't appreciate that. They're like, oh, why don't you just do journalism? Why don't you just like go on Substack and like do some journalism then?
Yeah.
Well,
I'll get right to that. I'll just go do some journalism real quick.
I view journalism
Mom,
as a little
stay out of my room. I'm doing journalism.
I view journalism a little bit as like staging a play, where you have a director and you have stagehands and you have the more you have in your production, the better the final product is really going to be. Like I'm like the story I'm doing right now for Mother Jones. I'm so grateful to have, a legal team and to have a travel budget behind it and stuff like that. But it's like, when you don't have those stuff, it's like, what are you going to do? Just go out there and Substack it like on your own dime and hope that you can, and get the money you need. It's really, really difficult. And yeah, I'm rooting for the guy, and, let's keep going.
Before we get out of here, there's just one more story I would like to talk about. Bold headline here in Politico: Democrats reclaim the American flag. The story is what it sounds like. Basically, it recounts like one Democrat gives another Democrat a flag as a gift. There's Democrats on the record saying like, different versions of like, we're patriotic. Actually, we're more patriotic than them. And I just think it is so funny. It is. Is
this, can I ask you, because I actually don't know, is this before or after the far right started to make a big deal about Mexican flags at anti-ICE protests?
This was after, but I think the context for this story was like ahead of the military parade where they're like, oh, they're going to be like, we love America, we love the troops. But like, if they really did, they wouldn't be behaving the way they are, kind of thing. It's just more like, it just kind of seems like, and it's been this way for a while, the best the Democratic Party can come up with is just like scolding or being like, instead of differentiating themselves, they're like, well, we're the real one, right. Instead of being like, oh, the far right immigration agenda is psycho and dangerous and bad, they're like, actually, we're the ones who are tough on the border. Right. It's just, it's like trying to sell themselves as Diet Coke, or it's Coke versus Pepsi, instead of being like, drinking 5 Cokes a day is actually like really bad for you. And we're water.
But I mean, it's also just on its face, superficial, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
it's a play to
maybe
the
it's
dumb
the magic
dumps,
mind talking, but I already have an idea that would be better. What if you had, what if you packaged the American flag around some sort of economic policy that you were pushing, right? Like, what if you have this, like, some sort of agenda to lift, Americans out of poverty, or to like help people, whatever, just to raise living conditions, and you package around subtly, images of the American flag or something like that. That would be a much better way to do it, because then you're insinuating it into people's minds and associating that with America. Because the issue is not like who likes America more. It's that the MAGA people have made the flag so much of an association with Trump's supposed anti-war and anti-immigrant like combo agenda, right? Which is really not a thing, right? Like in reality, he's just deregulating everything, stripping out everything out of the government, this, that, and the other thing, and apparently doing literally whatever Israel wants, right? It's not actually what he's, but that idea, that America First idea, they have made that associated with the flag. What if you associate the flag with something else, a policy, right? Instead of like, so the problem they have is that
and we're not talking like earned tax credits. We're
right.
talking about like something that would like materially change it, like free school lunch.
Sure. Sure. Things like that. I mean, part of a larger package. You think something like the Green New Deal, okay, maybe wasn't billed like, in a patriotic way. I mean, what if you took a big policy, like a big platform, and you made it like more superficially patriotic or subtly, whatever. They don't think those steps ahead. They're just like, oh, flag good. Like we need the people who voted for Trump that voted for Biden like last time.
Well, it's this obsession with optics and looking good. We got to look good, and like, that's how we'll win. We just need to like look a little better than these guys. But there's an unwillingness to like promise anything.
Looks are important. It's the issue is just optics. Like, people know what America First is. They have the idea of what it is, right?
Yeah,
a
point my dad would make to me during the election, like, or after Trump won the first time, would be like, this was his theory of it. He's not a Trump fan, but he is, lifelong sort of Reagan-y Republican. He has his head screwed on straight, but we just think differently, and that's okay. But he would say, okay, well, think about what was Trump promising to do. You could probably name a few things. He wanted to enforce the border. He wanted to lower taxes. He wanted, at least the stuff he was saying, right? It's like you kind of like knew what Trump was about. But if you were like, what are 3 things that like Hillary Clinton wants to do? What are you going to get if you elect her? And then you're just like, something good.
What's interesting is actually, now that you mention it, Bernie was like, felt like he had a sort of Americana branding, actually. There was a little bit of it. And that's kind of what I meant.
And Bernie had that thing that, my dad was talking about. It's like, you knew what Bernie was about.
He kept saying the 1% over and over again.
He was like, higher corporate taxes, universal health care. People knew what he stood for. But, I don't know, maybe Bernie would have won if he had just, accepted a commemorative American flag from one of his colleagues on the Hill.
Absolutely.
Well, Mike, I'm looking at the clock. It's probably about time we get out of here and let our listeners go about their lives. Before we get out of here, just a reminder, we've got the tip jar in the description of this episode. There's a little link to it. Even $1 helps. Mike, anything else before we get out of here? What have you been listening to?
Who have I been listening? Actually, this is an old album, so it's not like if you want a new recommendation, I could probably give it. But I've been listening to the album Street Cleaner by Godflesh. It is a seminal industrial album, and it's it's not for everybody. I think it's a pretty abrasive listen.
Yeah, you've recommended me a couple of things in the past, and I've listened to it and done the. Have you seen that image? I think it's like a soccer coach or something, just like ripping his headphones off. I probably got that wrong. I'm just like,
I listen. My softer, like for a softer touch, I love the new Stereolab album. Pick it up and show you. It's called Instant Holograms on Metal Film. That's what it's called.
That's a CD. Oh, I forgot you got back into CDs, right?
Yeah, I listen to CDs because I don't like loss. I don't like too much loss. I do listen to in the car. I listen to streaming. It's the new Stereolab album. The song "Melody Is a Wound" is probably the best Stereolab song I've heard. I don't know, maybe not. I don't know. I get too in love with it, and then I'm like years later, I'll be like, okay, well maybe it's like ranked somewhere else. But I love that. If you want a softer listen, check it out. It's really good.
I guess I'll make a recommendation. The new Turnstile album slaps. It's so good. So good. Just go check it out. It's never enough. is the opening track on it. It's a cool sort of move return style. Like a lot of these guys are like, you know, punkers from the LA scene, because like LA is just like where it's hot for punk music right now. They all have their own side projects and stuff. And then Turnstile is the like sort of softer, but with an edge on it. And they do a lot. What I really like about this album, if you just hit play and like listen to the end, they do a lot of these sort of like almost like ambient transitions between the songs. And that can be really cheesy when it's done poorly, but it's done so well here. And it just like really, the whole album just feels like the songs are very different, but they've managed to like kind of, you know, when they finish one song, like work their way to the next song in a way that I think is really elegant and makes it really enjoyable to listen to as an album. So that's my recommendation.
Awesome. And I want to just give a shout out to my 12-year-old son, because I am taking him to see Wu-Tang Clan's final tour.
Oh, hell yeah.
At Madison Square Garden.
Didn't you take him to Kraftwerk too? I
did.
You're a cool dad, Mike.
I would go, yeah, but it's like, you know, that's like classical music now, you know. But the Wu-Tang thing, I'm going to have to prepare him.
What is this, 90 BPM?
Yeah, yeah, I'm doing that. Like, I'm seeing a bunch of shows, actually. Oh my gosh, I sound like such a aging hipster, but I'm seeing Panda Bear. I'm seeing Stereolab, and I'm seeing Autechre, that's the big one for me. I'm actually seeing Autechre alone. For those of you who know, like, autistic, I should go back. It's actually Freudian slip. For people who know who listen to like hard bloops and bleeps over and over again repeatedly for hours at a time. You know, I need to be in it. Like, I believe the show is like supposed to run like 6 hours, and it's just like 6 hours of them doing bloops and bleeps and feedback. So I need to do that alone. And it's not only because no one I know will go with me.
You know, I have to keep that part in, don't you?
Okay.